I'm from Dubbo. I'm 14 years old and I use Snapchat, TikTok and Instagram, the main ones.
I'm 12 and I'm on TikTok and Snapchat.
Oh, look, I'm using it pretty often, every single day, without a doubt.
Food for the brain before a day of food for thought.
What you see and what you do on social media influences who you are and it leaves a footprint. It's there forever.
There is some benefits. You could gain knowledge and not everyone watches the news these days, so it is a way to get that information if you're not sitting in the lounge room at night time.
These teenagers are taking part in the country's first ever social media summit, hosted by the state governments in Sydney today and Adelaide tomorrow.
The policies that are being made is affecting us young people, so I think it's great that they're involving young people.
Different generations have had such different upbringings, so we really need those different voices to find a solution that works for all and not just like the grown-ups.
The event brings together experts, policymakers, educators and young people in the same room to discuss the effects social media is having on everyday life.
Childhood and adolescence are completely different than what they were for people, say, in the 80s, 90s, even the 2000s. That back then, when teens wanted to communicate, they might call each other on the phone or they'd get together in person, they'd hang out together. And now that's not as much the social norm. The rise of smartphones and social media is the most plausible explanation for that.
But spending a lot of time on social media and less time with friends in person, that makes sense.
Dr. Jean Twangy is a professor of psychology at San Diego State University and says social media is having a profoundly negative impact.
Well, at the time that social media became more and more popular, teen depression doubled, loneliness went up, anxiety went up. Teens started spending a lot less time with their friends in person and less time sleeping. So if you put that together, that's a pretty poor formula for mental health.
It's an issue drawing the attention of governments across the world. In recent years, several countries have introduced laws and guidelines ranging from parental consent, time limits, and outright bans for children on social media.
Overall, there just needs to be more regulation because right now there's virtually no regulation of social media.
Now there is momentum to try and enforce a ban in Australia as well. Last month, a report by former High Court Chief Justice Robert French was published, laying the groundwork for South Australia to put in place age restrictions on social media.
I can't stress enough that I think there is a degree of urgency here. I mean, what are we waiting for?
The report proposes it should be the obligation of social media platforms to prevent access to children 13 and under, and also require parental consent for 14 and 15-year-olds. It also says there should be a regulator that could financially penalise companies that fail to comply and even take them to the Supreme Court for serious breaches. The proposal would also allow families of children who've suffered harm as a result of access to social media to sue the tech titans for damages.
What it means is it's not the children getting in trouble. It's actually putting the onus on the social media companies to ensure that they're doing absolutely everything they can to remove any mental or physical harm that might be coming.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Danielle Einstein says a ban would change what is socially acceptable in Australia, like minimum age requirements with alcohol and driving.
Social media is a vehicle. We have to be really aware because it pulls on some very fundamental psychological drives, okay, that can lead to us being actually quite unhappy. Until we have the maturity to be able to use it, we should delay it.
Most platforms have a minimum age requirement of 13, but 84% of Australian children between 8 and 12 are already using social media. Many have had help from an adult to access an account, but some manage to bypass age verification requirements.
So we're talking about everybody agreeing on the age at which it's healthy to have use of social media at our fingertips.
Not all experts believe raising the age is the solution. Amanda Third is the co-director of Western Sydney University's Young and Resilient Research Centre and says there are positives to social media as well.
They can pursue their curiosities, learn about new skills, create things, work together. There are a bunch of really wonderful benefits for children's education, for their health and well-being, for their sense of connection and belonging.
Professor Third is one of more than 100 experts that have signed an open letter to the Prime Minister and Premiers expressing their concerns around a ban. She says there should be a greater focus on better regulation and education.
By removing those children from online spaces, we are also removing the obligation on technology platforms to ensure that those spaces are safe and beneficial. I'm worried that if children end up online because they can circumnavigate the technologies that keep them out of those spaces, they will end up in more unsafe spaces and they'll be less able to reach out for the help they need because they shouldn't have been there.
Although not everyone agrees on implementing a ban, it doesn't appear to matter. Both the federal opposition and government have committed to putting one in place. The Albanese government intends to introduce legislation by the end of the year, but the cut-off age is still being determined.
I think a ban is beneficial because from my personal experience I've been exposed to harmful content that I don't think like a 10, 12-year-old should be experiencing.
I don't think a ban is the right answer, but I think limiting and restricting it with more proper procedure in social media would be the way to go.
Tech giants have taken some steps to address the issue. TikTok told the ABC it removed 1 million Australian accounts suspected of being underage last year.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts.
While Instagram has launched separate accounts for people under 18 with stricter privacy settings and content and time limits.
Even child social media platforms that are not able to limit time across multiple platforms are not going to be able to be an answer.
The solution here is not to evict children from social media, it's to make social media better and to demand from the platforms that they step up and deliver on that responsibility.
The issues surrounding social media are front of mind. Although there are differing views, there is universal consensus that more needs to be done.
We're no longer at the beginning of this. We're at a point where we know enough to try to do something about it.